My name is Isabella Altair, and I am a program coordinator at Maryland History Day. Today we're going to be talking about the History Day bibliography. So first, what is a bibliography? Most simply, a bibliography is a list of sources that you consulted to do research. It should include any source that you looked at while you were creating your History Day project. Bibliographies are used in almost every field that includes research, from science to public health to history. There are a lot of rules associated with creating a bibliography, but they're still incredibly important when you're doing any kind of research. There are 3 reasons that we use bibliographies. First, you need to keep track of your sources. If you find one source that says that something happened in one way and another source that says something happened in a different way, you need to keep track of which is which so that you can compare them. Second, people who read your research need to know where you got that information from. Your bibliography shows them that you got your information from a trusted source, and that allows them to believe in what you wrote. And third, the bibliography allows you to really think about how the source is used in your project. If you can't think or write about how a source is used and how it helps you construct the project, then you might not need it in your bibliography or project overall. History Day bibliographies also include an annotation. An annotation is 2 to 3 sentences that explains how you used each resource. This annotation allows anyone who reads your bibliography to quickly understand how the source was used, why you found it helpful, and where they might be able to see it in your project. Here is an example of a History Day bibliography annotation. As you can see, the student explains how they use the source and why it fits into their project. The History Day project is all about presenting your information to viewers. Whether you're working on a documentary, exhibit, website, or performance, or paper, you want your viewers to understand where you got your information from. That's why we use something called citations and image credits. Citations are basically shorter versions of your bibliography entries that allow readers to quickly see where your information came from. For papers, exhibits, and websites, you should have citations directly inside of your project itself. The National History Day website is a good source on information about how to cite in your project. Make sure to read this page carefully to see how to include citations in your project. Now we're going to discuss the difference between primary and secondary sources. For History Day, your bibliography should be divided into primary and secondary sources and alphabetized by the first letter of the bibliography entry. So how do you know which is which? There's lots of great information available to you about how to identify primary versus secondary sources, including the NHD.org website itself. Essentially, primary sources are those that are first-hand or prime information. They show the information that we use to piece together historical narratives. This includes letters, first-hand accounts, newspaper articles from the time, or oral histories, or photographs. Secondary sources are those that use that first-hand information to provide an overview or an analysis, or provide a general context for you. This includes encyclopedia articles, scholarly journals, books by scholars, or podcasts. So does this mean that primary sources don't have any bias? No. Even a primary source can have bias. It's just about having a different point of view. It's important to look at different points of view when you're completing your project, but it's up to you to analyze them. Sometimes the difference between a primary and secondary source is not so easy to tell. A primary source can still be primary even if it was created later than the event that we're looking at. For example, if I'm researching the Great Railroad Strike of 1877, I'm primarily going to be using photographs and newspaper articles from the late 1800s. However, I might want to look at the long-term impact of the railroad strike by looking at modern-day railroad strikes and labor movements. So an interview with someone who was working on a labor movement today would still be a primary source. This is because this focuses on that person's experience. When you're trying to decide whether something is a primary or secondary source, think about the question that you're trying to answer. Does this information provide first-hand information, or does it give an overview or an analysis of someone who was not present? Bibliographies in the History Day judging rubric show up in several places. Your teacher might use something that looks like this sheet to evaluate your History Day project. If you're going to the district contest, judges will also use this sheet to rank you against other projects. You can find this on the NHD website or by Googling NHD evaluation rubric. There are a number of categories here that connect to the bibliography. The ones that have most to do with the bibliography that you submit are wide research and primary sources. The reviewers will look at your bibliography specifically for these categories, and without a strong bibliography, you're probably not going to score very well here. However, other categories also connect to the bibliography. For example, a reviewer looking to rank you on multiple perspectives might look at your bibliography first, and then see how the sources you used fit into your project. Similarly, historical accuracy has a strong connection to your bibliography. While your information might be correct, the reviewer can't verify that without the information that is located in your bibliography. It's very important to keep track of your sources as you're working, and this can help you complete the bibliography in the end. Your teacher might provide you with tools to track your sources, but it's up to you to actually make sure that you're writing down the important information. Some resources include making a bookmarks folder on your web browser, using a tool like Noodle Tools or Citation.net to keep track of all of your citations, or creating the bibliography as soon as you get a source. This looks like checking a book out of the library and immediately creating the citation for it in a Word document or a Google Sheet form. Then you can keep all of the notes about that particular book next to that citation, and that way when you're ready to put it all into your final project, you have all of the citation and the bibliography information ready to go. Overall, here are some reminders for finishing your project. First, look at examples. Bibliographies can be pretty similar, so it can be helpful to make sure that your bibliography looks like the ones from past History Day projects, which you can find on the Maryland's History Day State website or at the National History Day website. And you can look at other bibliographies available on sources like the Purdue Online Writing Lab. Second, do multiple drafts. Because the bibliography has so many different parts, it's important to try and catch those different errors later on. You can refine as you go. Double check. It's also very easy to miss citations throughout your project. If you finish early, that gives you time to double check all of those small details and make sure that they're correct. We hope you learned a lot about the bibliography in this video. We have many, many more sources on our YouTube page about the bibliography and about writing citations for you to check out. Happy History Day!